Thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika, and greetings, everyone. Excuse me. I'm very honored to be invited once again to participate in an International Manifesto Group webinar. We're speaking just 2 days away from the 2024 presidential election in the United States. And I'll begin by quoting the great scholar W.E.B. Du Bois. On October 20th, 1956, he declared in an essay published in The Nation magazine entitled, "I Won't Vote." He said, quote, "Stop running Russia and giving Chinese advice when we cannot rule ourselves decently. Stop yelling about a democracy we do not have. Democracy is dead in the United States," unquote. Those words may as well have been written in 2024 as in 1956, as Du Bois recounted trying to navigate the US political system over many years, which is especially difficult when wanting to have an outcome that is in any way favorable or even less evil for Black people. He goes on, quote, "In 1912, I wanted to support Theodore Roosevelt, but his Bull Moose Convention dodged the Negro problem, and I tried to help elect Wilson as a liberal Southerner. Under Wilson came the worst attempt at Jim Crow legislation and discrimination in civil service that we had experienced since the Civil War. In 1916, I took Hughes as the lesser of two evils. He promised Negroes nothing and kept his word. In 1920, I supported Harding because of his promise to liberate Haiti, which didn't happen for another 15 years, I add. In 1924, I voted for La Follette, although I knew he could not be elected. In 1928, Negroes faced an absolute dilemma. Neither Hoover nor Smith wanted the Negro vote, and both publicly insulted us," unquote. And I've seen these dynamics my entire life as Black people feel trapped by electoralism and vote for what has been the Black People's Party since the 1960s, the Democrats. We voted for Jimmy Carter even after he spoke of keeping ethnic purity in neighborhoods, and Bill Clinton used Black prisoners in a photo opportunity, or Barack Obama, as he scolded Black men as being irresponsible and bad fathers, and Joe Biden, who bragged about shepherding Bill Clinton's racist crime bill through the Senate, and who had spoken of a racial jungle. Now we are told that Kamala Harris, a mediocrity who can barely express herself, a hollow woman without conviction, whose career is the result of rich Democrats promoting her, is some sort of savior for Black people and for left-leaning Democrats. Of course, running against Donald Trump gives just about anyone more gravitas than they deserve, but it's especially insulting now, as Kamala Harris has pledged to continue the US-Israeli genocide. I know she claims to want a ceasefire, but that is completely disingenuous, as she also pledges to continue arming Israel. She speaks to us as though we are stupid, pretending that the US president, the one person on earth who could end the genocide, is somehow prevented from doing so. But there are always larger forces at play. I don't think we should discuss US politics without pointing out that the duopoly parties, the Republicans and Democrats, are controlled by the US oligarchs. And we can see that in the amount of money that they raise. As of October 25th, the Harris campaign has raised $997.2 million. In other words, a billion. Trump is far behind with a mere $388 million. Not only has Harris raised that $1 billion that Democrats usually do, but she's done so faster than any other Democratic presidential candidate before her. In a nutshell, this tells the story of why US citizens are denied a choice for peace, people, and planet. Just listen to Larry Fink. He's a billionaire and the CEO of the BlackRock hedge funds. He said, "I'm tired of hearing this is the biggest election in our lifetime. The reality is over time, it doesn't matter for the markets." And he added that BlackRock is having conversations with both Harris and Trump. It reminds me of a similar statement made by the CEO of Boeing, a defense contractor, during the 2020 election between Trump and Joe Biden. He said, I think both candidates, at least in my view, appear globally oriented and interested in the defense of our country, and I believe they'll support the industries. They'll do it in different ways and they'll have different terms for sure, but I don't think we're going to take a position on one being better than the other. Now, if there were any differences between the two parties, there would be a difference in the markets or in defense spending. Shouldn't there be a difference depending upon who wins? There's another lack of difference that should be pointed out. Studies have shown that economic elites and organized groups representing business interests have substantial independent impacts on US government policy, while average citizens and mass-based interest groups have little or no independent influence. Yet we're exhorted to vote. In the US, we're not exhorted to or encouraged to do much else, just to vote and not to ask too many questions about who we should vote for. We are told we cannot consider anyone outside of the two-party duopoly, and that doing so is dangerous. That is why The Nation, an allegedly leftist publication, which published Du Bois's essay 78 years ago, now publishes hit pieces against Green Party candidate Jill Stein. Someone named James Fox, a documentary filmmaker, was given space in The Nation just 2 days ago to declare that environmentalists must vote for Kamala Harris, who swears she will not ban fracking and she'll continue increasing oil output. In other words, she'll accelerate climate change. We are told to ignore her words and vote instead for the person pledged to change US policy, and not to vote for the person pledged to change US policy to protect the environment. While Harris promises not just to continue military spending, but to make sure that the US military is the most lethal, she's chosen that word several times, the most lethal in the world. And as we all know, that means making sure it continues to be the world's biggest polluter. How can it not be, with more than 800 US military bases and facilities around the world? There are forces very actively preventing choice for the people. Here in New York State, where I live, former Governor Andrew Cuomo changed the nominating rules and made it very difficult for small, read less rich parties to be on the ballot. New York is now the only state in the union where voters can only choose between Harris or Trump. Candidates like Jill Stein or Claudia de la Cruz must be written in by voters and get at least 130,000 votes in order for their parties to have ballot status. Anyone who wants to vote outside of the duopoly is derided as a pro-Trump supporter or a danger to democracy itself. We are, in fact, the ones upholding democracy, which, if it means anything, should mean that the will of the people can be heard and that voters have choice. But choice is the last thing that liberals in particular want us to have. European Green parties were directed by someone to tell voters in the US not to vote for Stein. This clearly coordinated attack was quite phony. We know that German Greens, for example, are pro-war, pro-genocide. Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock, a Green, stated quite clearly that she supports Israeli war crimes, saying that civilians cannot be guaranteed safety, a clear violation of the Geneva Conventions. But most people don't know that US Greens are further to the left than the Europeans who claim that same label. But it is interesting that despite the Democrats' fundraising success, they are not far ahead of Trump in the polls. Why is the party that does so much better at fundraising only even with the Republicans? We are told only that Trump supporters are deplorable, racist garbage, while it's never pointed out the lack of difference between the two parties, and that explains why Trump is equally popular. If there were a difference, if working people were given better advantage by one party over the other, as the Democrats claim to do, Harris would be far ahead of Trump. I also believe that polls undercut Trump's support, and I won't be surprised if he wins. But as we're discussing today, the lack of choice is a feature of the US political system. And anyone who claims to change it in even a small way is driven out by both parties, the corporate media and politicians. Hence, we have a race that's closer than it should be. I also want to add that Democrats claim to support so-called social issues, such as abortion rights, and that these claims are also phony. Let's remember in 2008, as someone else pointed out, that Barack Obama campaigned saying he would codify the Roe v. Wade Supreme Court decision with legislation. Yet, just a few months into office, he said it wasn't his highest priority. It wasn't a priority at all. He made no effort to pass it, even when he had large majorities in both houses of Congress his first 2 years in office. Now we are told that even if we want to punish the Democrats for genocide, we should vote for Harris anyway because she'll protect abortion rights. I doubt she would do so, even if Democrats win both houses of Congress. That is because the people are never a priority. The CEOs of hedge funds and defense contractors are the priority for both capitalist parties. Issues such as abortion are used to fool people and to give an appearance of difference where there is none. As Sarah pointed out, Democrats have now given up even making their false promises. Harris doesn't even claim, as Biden did in 2020, that she'll raise the minimum wage. So yes, USians are denied choice for the things they want. Most people in this country want a higher minimum wage, lower defense spending, an end to killing in Gaza, but all of those things are off the table. After writing my book, Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents, I want to remind Black people especially that the desire for a good for Black people president is illusory, a political hustle. We will have to struggle, regardless of who is the winner on election day. So many people are hopeful for Harris and will breathe a sigh of relief if she wins and despair if Trump wins. The truth is we will have to struggle regardless of the electoral outcome. I think it is positive to recognize what we must do in order to survive. Wishful thinking is not positive. Humanity achieves change only when we are inspired and dedicated to being mobilized on our own behalf. So thank you. Thank you so very much for this opportunity.
I'm Michael Hudson. I'm appearing here for the International Manifesto Group. If you like this video and ones like it, please subscribe. For more information, go to the address on the screen.